Hello artists, and welcome to another edition of the Epic Art Academy's Epic Journey. I'm DaleneFM, and today we're going to be having a look at painting a horse. We're going to be having a look at specifically painting hair, but of course there's other aspects as well. So we'll just talk generally about horses. So now let's have a look at the bigger picture. And by the bigger picture I mean the overhead camera above me. First of all, I just want to go through a couple of brushes. As you can see, what I've done here is I've actually left this painting in various stages of development. This part here you can see is still the imprimatura layer, and this is still the charcoal drawing underneath the imprimatura layer that I've got here. So that's very early stages of the preparation of the canvas. This side of the face and this ear is the very first layer. Now this would be normally the color blocking layer, but in fact I sort of did color blocking and went one step further. So color blocking doesn't have to be as detailed as what it is on this particular painting, but effectively that's the color blocking layer. What you're seeing on this side of the face here is now the next layer. So we've got layers 1, 2 and 3, or phases 1, 2 and 3 of this painting all together on one face. Now of course I will go ahead and finish this horse in its entirety, but I wanted to get it to this stage of development because of what we're going to be talking about in this particular tutorial. This part of the horse here is the color blocking layer plus another layer. This part of the horse is at the same state of development as the side of the face over here, in the sense that we're now on our, say, third or phase 3 layer. This part of the horse is painted very differently, of course, from this, because with this part we're looking at a horse or a coat that is A, finer, because the horse's coat on the face is usually a little longer than it is on the body. So A, this part of the coat is finer, and B, it's further back. You know, the face is right in the foreground. This is kind of more mid-range, and as you can see, a little bit of the coat is still visible here on the neck, and going towards the back of the horse it's becoming less and less visible, and it's sort of quite smooth over there. You don't really see coat. Now in the source material, this sort of slightly hairiness of the coat is not visible. It all looks like it does here at the back. So this I've sort of done myself, except maybe in the source material there was a little bit of a sort of fluffiness or hairiness going on in the chest here, but none of this was visible. That I did myself because I wanted to break up the coat, make it look a little bit more like a coat. I didn't overdo it, of course, like I say, because it's not right in the foreground, so I don't want it anywhere near as detailed as what it is here on the head. So that's where we're going to start on the painting tonight, but let's have a look at some brushes. Now if you refer to the camera overhead, I'm not a big fan of round brushes being these little guys, and I'm talking now specifically about doing the fine details on the horse's hair. I'm not a big fan of round brushes because I find round brushes does not, contrary to popular belief. Let's just get another round brush here. Sorry, I just wanted to get a slightly bigger one I wanted to show you. That's a really nice round brush. It'll probably give you even a finer point than this little guy here, that's this really tiny round brush. Because of the way that the bristles are shaped, they taper a lot sharper. These small ones tend to flay and tend to sort of spread a little bit. Another thing about these little round brushes is that when you try and draw fine lines, they tend to go thick because the brush depresses really easily. There's not a lot of body to these brushes. So I will either use a large round brush and just very lightly use the tip of it, but what is even better in my opinion are brushes like these. This, for example, is a little filbert brush. Now if you look at it from the side, it is very thin, and I like to use a filbert brush on side to create the hairs rather than a round brush. I think the filbert brush does a far better job of it. That's another filbert, that's another filbert, and then there's also these guys. Now I like this particular brush. Now this is quite unique. It's probably not something that you're going to find all over the place. This is a really old brush. As you can see, the bristles are hard, but it just works so well with getting hairs on. This part of the horse was done with this brush, so it just works well with getting those textures. Now that's just an old, worn, almost useless brush now, but it just kind of works. So I don't know. So that is one of my favorite brushes in my arsenal, so that will not be thrown away no matter how old it gets. But this is a nice brush as well for getting fine work done, because you know you can use the broad side of the brush to do broad strokes, but then also it's very narrow and it's got a very sharp tip, so you can use the tip of the brush. And I also find that these brushes work a lot better than round brushes, and you can use the fine tip to get your little fine hairs. So brushes is quite important for getting fine work done. Now I am a relatively photorealistic painter. I don't go in for huge photorealism because I like a more painterly finish. So you know, your stage of realism or your the amount of realism that you want to put into your artwork is purely up to you, but I still, doesn't matter how much realism you want to do or how far you want to go in your realism, I still believe that the sharper pointed brushes, these flat sharper pointed brushes, or even the full bit brush that gives you a fine tip, is a lot nicer than the round brush in terms of creating fine work. Okay, now before I go any further, I just want to tell you that this particular painting, I'm actually doing it as a gift for a friend of mine, as a thank you gift, because she's horsey crazy. Her and I rode horses together for many years, and we still do from time to time, but she's horse mad, and I'm busy doing a thank you gift for her. This is not one of my photographs. I did not take it, and in fact I don't even know where it comes from. She gave it to me to paint for her. I suspect it came off the internet, so this is not going to be a painting that I will sell. So a little bit of a disclaimer, I do not have the right to sell this painting. Alright, so where we're going to start is I'm going to start filling in this side of the face a little bit more, to match up a little bit more with this side. Now this is not a white mark, this is actually a white horse. There's a lot of sage and a lot of green in it because that is the base colors of this painting, but it is actually a white horse. So we need to start filling in this part to bring it in balance. As you can see, my blocking out layer is quite a lot darker than my sort of detailed layer. Because it's good with oil paintings to paint from dark to light, and from dark to light, I don't mean from dark areas necessarily to light areas, although that is also good, but to paint from a darker base up through the layers to a lighter base. Alright, so I've got my really old brush here that, as I said, is hard as nails, and as you can see, only the tips work. The rest of the brush is hard. It's just one of those brushes, you know, it's like a pair of old jeans that you just don't want to throw away. And I'm going to start with this brush, and I'm going to start just putting in the basic colors. You know, when I say the basic colors, I mean I'm not going to start working straight away to here. I'm going to place areas of color, and then we're going to blend them together with the smaller brushes to get the hairiness of the horse. This is actually only a 3-color painting. I've got a very dark green and a much lighter sort of sagey color, and then a white, of course, and the 3 colors are going to work together to give me the effect that I'm looking for. There's no need to be careful at this point at all. As you can see, I'm actually also being quite rough on the brush, really squeezing the paint onto the canvas. Because what I'm actually trying to do here is I'm pushing paint into the tooth of the canvas. The theory behind that in my mind has probably got quite a bit to do with the fact that once the tooth of the canvas is filled, then you can soften your paint and get a little bit more detail going when you start blending these sort of colors together, you know, when you start working these colors together. Blending is not really the right word. Okay, so no attention to detail yet, just placing colors. So I will do that for a little section. Alright, now I'm not going to do it obviously for the whole lot. I'll do it section by section. Now I'm going to go down to my little full bit brush. Now I've got 2 full bit brushes of the same kind here, the same size, one of which is newer than the other. You'll see this one here is a little bit splayed, and this one is newer. It's had less wear and tear on it. I'm going to start off with the more splayed one at this point, just condition it with a little bit of oil. So I just want to have it slightly softer, and I'm going to start working the colors into one another. Again, not major detail, and it's a very light touch at this point. I'm not pressing down very hard because I'm trying to create a hairy texture. I'm trying to create the hairy texture, but not too much attention to detail yet. That will come shortly in the next few moments. In case you're wondering, the reason I'm working on my table as opposed to working on the easel is simply because it's easier to record. It's easier for you guys to see what I'm doing than it is on the easel, you know, because this camera overhead gives me a much better a sort of close-up. When I'm working on the easel, I don't seem to get as nice a close-up of what I'm doing, and that's the only reason I'm working on the table. I should normally, when doing a painting like this, I would work on the easel. So I'm finding it a little bit tough because I'm trying not to rest my arm on the canvas, of course, because the support is in midair. So I'm sort of scribbling backwards and forwards, for want of a better description, just getting the colors to start merging together. I'm taking notice of where my directionality of my hair growth is, and I'm taking notice of the structure of the face and the lights and dark shadows that it's going to be creating. Now, the fact that this is a frayed brush is helping me at this point. You know, your old brushes can actually come in quite handy. I find that especially for dry brushing. When I'm working with dry brushing, I like to work with old brushes. We've got a little bit of a hair growth directional change here. So that's when you're working with something like this. First of all, you've got to remember that the horse's hair is it's a relatively short. Well, it's a short coat. You know, a horse in winter will have a bit more of a winter coat, so it'll be a little bit more hairy depending on the horse. But generally speaking, horses have got relatively fine coats, so you're not going to do long brush strokes. Long brush strokes are going to give you a long coat. You know, you'd use long brush strokes when I'm doing the mane and so on. There's a whole lot of mane that comes up on this side, and there's quite a lot more down here, and there's a bit flying around behind the ear. Those are going to be long brush strokes to create those long hairs. And of course, if you're working on an animal that has a long coat, then you would want long brush strokes. But you want short little brush strokes to create a short coat. Now, a lot of non-artists will be forgiven for believing that as artists, we, especially the realism artists, paint every single tiny little hair, and that is not always the case. And if you are one of those artists that does literally paint from left to right or top to bottom and paints every tiny little hair, you're working really, really hard. And I think if we start to learn to layer our paints and come up with ways to, shall we say, simplify the process, then we become much more efficient. Now you can see I'm doing what I was talking about. I've got the slightly newer full bit brush here. A little bit of oil on the brush. The paint has got a bit of oil in it. It's mixed with a 50-50 alkyd resin and terps medium. And I'm not putting a heck of a lot of medium into the paint, so the paint is sort of dry-ish. But what I'm doing is I dip my brush into the alkyd resin and terps medium on its own. I'll just show you quickly. If you have a look, here's my palette here. These are my colors, and then I've just got a blob of terps medium, alkyd and terps mix over there, and I'll dip my brush into that and then into the paint, because what I'm wanting is quite a soft paint, relatively liquid, so to speak, because the liquidity of the paint is also going to give you the fine detail on the hair as well. So now what I'm doing is I'm pulling the dark color into the light. You've actually got to worry about directionality, because like here we've got a patch of dark, and it grows that way. The hair growth is going across the top of the horse's head, so I'm trying to work in the direction of the hair growth. So strictly speaking, what I should be doing is working up with the dark in that area, and then later on, when I've done all that, I'll come back with white, and I work up that way. So you're always working with the direction of the hair growth. However, there are occasions, I'll come back and touch that up, that was just for demo purposes. There are going to be occasions where you're going to want to work against the hair growth, and that's going to be particularly when you've got hair that's overlapping and you want to create sort of shadowy areas, and you want to, let's just say you've got two little pieces of hair that create a V and the in-between bit is shadowed. You're going to want to pull down because that's going to create the shadow underneath the hair, so to speak. So there are some occasions that you going to want to go against the hair growth. As you can well imagine, for those of us that do relatively photorealistic type work, this type of work is very time consuming. So it's not something to be rushed. You know, I found I'm quite a quick painting, but then I'm quite a quick painter, but then I'm also not as photorealistic as some other artists are, and that is sort of by choice. I'm much more comfortable knowing that my painting is a painting, or knowing that my painting looks like a painting, but that's perfectly, well, should I say, that's absolutely just a matter of opinion. It's my style, that's the way I like to work. So you see that little patch of paint that I've put on there? I've literally just very gently dabbed a relatively, shall we say, thick-ish little blob of paint, because now what I'm going to do, because that's quite a strong highlight that we've got going there on the horse's coat, so I'm literally just flicking it up, flicking little hairs off of it into the darker color. And I'm touching the canvas very lightly, and you see as I go in, because now I'm painting wet on wet, of course, as I go into the darker areas, so the white automatically mixes with the green and becomes more of a mid-tone white, and that's exactly what I want to create, because this is where the light part of the hair is starting to go into shadow. Right, so I've just painted that little bit here to a much higher degree of completion. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a soft, dry, clean brush, and I'm just going to very lightly smooth out in the direction of the hair growth. Now the reason I do that is because, I don't know if you can see, there I've done it, there I have it. It just softens the hair a little bit. Just slightly, and I'm just touching it, not a lot, just touching it, and it just gives me a slightly softer finish. And you know, it's quite I've struggled to talk and paint at the same time, sorry guys, I'm sure you guys find a similar thing happening. It's something that it's a push-pull. I've always used that term because it's something that you'll get your dry brush, work over that to soften it, and then it's too soft, come back, do some more, and until eventually you're at the degree of softness that you want to be at. Now that little bit that I did there, I found my paint was a little bit dry, so I wasn't getting a nice sort of hairy look to it, so I just went back and put a little bit more oil on my brush. I'm trying to remember to describe every step of the way that what I'm doing here. Now of course I'm not going to film this entire process because you know, we'll be here for a 6-hour long video, or however long it takes for you to watch everything I'm doing. I'm just trying to do this little area here to a relatively high rate of completion, so that you can begin to understand the entire process as much as possible. And I think also what we need to remember is that every artist has a different process, every artist has a different sort of focus on their work. So the process that I'm using here, while it may be helpful, is my process. Not that I own it, but it's the process that I feel comfortable working with. So the intention is to show you what I'm doing, explain to you how I'm doing it, and then for you to sort of use it to create your own process, if that makes any sense at all. Because a lot of what we learn as artists, or what we learn from other artists, becomes one of many tools that we use. It's not necessarily that we do it exactly the same way as what we were taught to do it, but that we take what we've learned and we apply it in a way that best suits the type of artwork or the style of artwork that we are wanting to create. And this is my intention with this particular tutorial, as well as any other tutorial that I put out. I'm not trying to say you've got to do it my way, not at all. I'm just saying, look, this is how I do it. If there's anything in here that you feel that you can use and learn from it, then I hope you do. Okay, so I've zoomed into the little area that I'm working on at the moment, just because I want to show you a little bit closer this is the dry area that I worked on yesterday or the day before, and this is the area that I'm working on now, and I've integrated them together because I could have ended up with this hard line between the two if I wasn't careful. But I've integrated them together by pulling some of the white hairs from this side in, and on this side here I've taken some of the dark hairs across, and I just want to show you now a little bit about what I was talking about earlier on, about getting just one or two really sort of deep, dark, not really dark because it depends on in this particular case, the little dark hairs, just to create an area of really high detail, showing some of the shadow or some of the texture in the coat. And it literally just takes one or two little brush strokes. Not a lot. And it's a very, very light touch, because the paint that I'm using is relatively soft in the sense that I've got a bit of oil into it, because I want to soften it, because the softer the paint is, the easier it is to get fine lines. But if I make it too soft, then it's just going to the paint is going to become quite transparent and glaze like, and I don't want that to happen either. So I've got just enough oil in there to make the paint or the brush glide over the canvas. And of course I'm working on wet paint underneath, so it's probably a little bit easier in a sense, because I think when you're working on a dry canvas or on dry paint, it can be a little bit more difficult to create because your brush doesn't glide as easy. That again might just be a matter of opinion. I suppose different artists working in different ways might disagree with that, but it's not really a technique, in other words. So artists, obviously this painting has got a ways to go before it's finished. I just wanted to hone in on this little area here to show you a little bit about painting a short coated animal, getting the texture into the hairiness of the animal, the directionality, and how one lays the colors. You know, the light hair is lying over the dark hair, and the dark hair over the light hair in the relative areas. So I just wanted to show you that, and go through a bit of brushes and a bit of oils, and to help you get your fine work technique right. I'm going to carry on with this painting, and what I'll do, the rest of the painting I will put up as a time-lapse video for you to watch, but I just wanted to concentrate on this sort of hairiness of the forehead of this horse with the short coat. Short coats can be a little bit more difficult to achieve than longer coats. You know, lion's mane, for example, can actually be easier to achieve than these short little textured foreheads of horses, for example. Artists, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please, please, please don't forget to like and share and comment. By all means, please, you know, post it onto whoever timeline that you want to. And don't forget the YouTube channel. And don't forget to switch on your notifications for either the Epic Art Facebook page or the YouTube channel, whichever it is that you prefer to watch, so that you can get updated on videos as they happen. Thank you, artists, very much for joining me, and I'm going to carry on with this painting, and I will see you in the time-lapse video. Bye.